Picture this. It's Sunday evening, the sun's going down, there's maybe a good movie on TV, and somewhere in the back of your mind, even if you're trying to ignore it, there's this quiet, creeping dread. Because tomorrow is Monday, and Monday means the alarm at 6:15, the commute, the same desk, the same inbox, the same let's circle back on that meeting that absolutely did not need to be a meeting. And you sit there thinking, is this it? Is this just life now? My friend Lewis called me one Sunday evening a while back, just to talk, nothing urgent, and somewhere in the middle of the conversation, he said, almost like it just slipped out, Adam, I feel like I'm spending my best hours making someone else rich. And then there was this long pause, and I didn't have a great answer for him, because honestly, I'd felt the exact same way. My name is Adam, and I spend probably way too much time thinking about money, financial psychology, and why some people manage to completely transform their financial life, while others, even smart, hard-working people, stay stuck in the same cycle for decades. Not because they're lazy, not because they don't care, but because nobody ever sat them down and explained the actual mechanics of how money builds freedom. And that's kind of what this video is about. We're not going to talk about getting rich overnight. We're not doing that. What we're going to talk about is something more realistic, more sustainable, and honestly, more exciting once you actually understand it. We're going to talk about how to take that steady 9-to-5 income you're already earning and use it as a launchpad, a foundation, the seed money for a completely different kind of life. By the end of this, you're going to have a clearer picture of the actual steps that separate people who retire comfortably and early from people who work until they physically can't anymore. Some of it will feel obvious in hindsight, some of it might genuinely shift the way you think about your paycheck. Let's get into it. You're not saving wrong, you're thinking wrong. Okay, so here's the thing. The first problem most people have isn't that they're bad with money, it's that they have a completely backwards mental model of what money actually is. Most of us grew up with some version of the same financial lesson. Work hard, earn money, save what's left over. And look, that's not terrible advice, but it's incomplete in a way that kind of ruins you. Because when your only relationship with money is, I earn it and I spend it, you never stop to ask the more important question, which is, can my money earn money without me? Think of it this way. Your 9-to-5 income is like a single tap. It's flowing, it's steady, but the moment you stop working, you turn off the tap. Savings are fine. Savings are a glass of water sitting on the counter. But what you actually want to build is a second tap, and then a third. Taps that keep running even when you're asleep, even when you're on holiday, even when you're watching that Sunday movie without the Monday dread. That's the mental shift. Your income isn't the destination, it's the raw material. And the people who achieve financial freedom early, they figured this out, usually in their late 20s or early 30s. They stopped treating their salary as money I earned and started treating it as capital I can deploy. Lewis, by the way, when I explained it to him, he literally went quiet for like 10 seconds. And then he said, so I've been just collecting water in a cup this whole time? Basically, yes. The good news is the cup isn't empty.
Here's where we start getting practical. And this is honestly one of the most powerful financial habits you can build. It sounds simple, it almost sounds too simple, but I promise you, it changes everything. It's called paying yourself first. And no, I don't mean buying yourself something nice as a reward. I mean this. The moment your salary hits your account, before you pay rent, before you buy groceries, before you do anything, a fixed percentage goes directly into a savings or investment account. Not what's left over, not after expenses. First. The standard recommendation is 20%, but honestly, even 10% consistently is transformative over time. The psychology behind this is fascinating. When you save from what's left, you spend everything and save nothing, because human beings will naturally expand their expenses to fill available income. It's called lifestyle inflation, and it's basically the silent killer of financial potential. But when you automate savings before you ever see that money sitting in your account, your brain just adjusts. You stop counting on that 10 or 20%. You build your life around what remains, and over months and years, you're building a growing reserve that's working for you in the background. That's the gap, the space between what you earn and what you spend. The gap is where your future is built. Set up an automatic transfer. Make it happen the same day your paycheck arrives. Don't rely on willpower. Willpower is unreliable. Ask anyone who's ever started a diet on a Monday. Systems, on the other hand, are relentless. Debt is a leak in your bucket. Before we talk about investing, we need to talk about something most personal finance content glosses over too quickly, and that's debt. Because you cannot build a second tap while your first tap is actively draining through a hole in the bucket. Not all debt is equal, though. This is important. There's a massive difference between a mortgage, which is debt attached to an asset that may appreciate, and credit card debt with a 20% interest rate, which is essentially financial quicksand. Every dollar you owe at high interest is costing you money every single month. It is the opposite of investing. Here's a way to think about it. If you have $1,000 sitting in a savings account earning maybe 3% annually, but you also have $1,000 in credit card debt at 20% interest, you are net negative $170 a year. That money in savings isn't helping you. It's just making the math look prettier than it is. The priority order for most people should look something like this. First, build a small emergency fund. 3 months of expenses, non-negotiable. Second, destroy high-interest debt with everything you've got. Third, then invest. In that order. I know it's tempting to jump straight to investing because it sounds exciting, and you see people online talking about returns and portfolios and compound interest, and all of that is real. It's genuinely exciting, but it doesn't work the way it should if you've got a leak in the bucket. Lewis, when he actually mapped out his debt versus saving situation a couple years ago, he realized he'd been investing in a low-yield savings account while carrying a car loan at a higher rate. He was essentially paying money to feel financially responsible. Once he redirected that cash to kill the loan first, he freed up hundreds a month. That's the kind of clarity that changes trajectories. All right, so assuming you've got your gap, you've got your emergency fund, your high-interest debt is handled, now we talk about the part that actually builds generational change, investing. And look, I want to strip away the mystique here because investing has this reputation for being complicated and risky and reserved for people in suits who understand terminology nobody else does. And while there's certainly complexity available if you want it, the fundamentals are genuinely accessible. The most powerful force in personal finance is compound growth. You've probably heard of compound interest. Einstein allegedly called it the eighth wonder of the world, though I suspect that quote might be slightly exaggerated. Either way, the concept is real and it is beautiful. When your money earns a return, and then that return earns a return, and that return earns a return, you get exponential growth over time. Not linear, exponential. Here's a simple illustration. If you invest $500 per month starting at age 25 and earn an average annual return of 7%, by the time you're 55, that's 30 years, you'd have roughly $567,000, more than $500,000. Not from some complex trading strategy, from consistently investing $500 a month into boring, diversified index funds. Index funds, by the way, are baskets of stocks that track a broad market, like the S&P 500, which includes 500 of the largest U.S. companies. The research is overwhelming on this. The majority of actively managed funds underperform simple index funds over the long run. Not because fund managers are dumb, but because markets are efficient, fees eat into returns, and consistency beats cleverness almost every time. The practical takeaway here, start investing a fixed amount every month in diversified, low-cost index funds. And don't touch it. Don't panic when the market dips. Don't celebrate when it soars and dump your life savings in. Be boring. Be consistent. Boring is wildly underrated in personal finance. Income diversification, the real meaning of financial freedom. Now here's where we go a level deeper. Because investing is crucial, but the people who achieve true financial freedom, the kind where work becomes optional, not mandatory, they almost always have multiple income streams. They're not just employees, they're also owners, creators, earners of passive income in some form. I want to be real with you here. Building additional income streams takes time, effort, and usually some upfront investment, whether that's money, skills, or just hours. This isn't the passive income while you sleep in week one situation, but over a few years, it compounds just like investments do. What are we actually talking about? A few real examples. Dividend-paying stocks. You own shares in companies that pay you a portion of their profits regularly just for holding the stock. Rental income, property that generates cash flow monthly. A side business or freelance skill that earns outside your main job. Digital products, things like online courses, templates, or content you create once and can sell repeatedly. A YouTube channel, a blog, an affiliate marketing setup. None of these replace a salary on day one, but 2 years from now, 5 years, they start to add up. The goal over time is to reach what some people call the crossover point, the moment when your investment income and passive income streams collectively cover your living expenses. That's not retirement necessarily, that's freedom. The freedom to choose whether you work, what you work on, and how much of your time you sell to someone else. And here's the thing. You don't need to quit your job to start building this. That's actually the beauty of the 9 to 5 in this context. Your job is funding the mission. Use the income, reduce the expenses, invest the gap, build the side streams. Your salary is the launching pad, not the ceiling. Lifestyle inflation is the sneaky trap that resets the clock. I have to spend a minute on this because it is so easy to fall into and so devastating to financial progress. Lifestyle inflation is what happens when your income goes up and your spending goes up at exactly the same rate. You get a raise, so you upgrade your car. You get a bonus, so you book a nicer holiday. You start earning more from a side hustle, so you move into a bigger apartment. There's nothing inherently wrong with enjoying your money. Life is for living. I'm not out here telling you to eat rice and water in a monastery. But if every increase in income triggers an equal increase in expenses, your gap never grows, your investment rate never increases, and the timeline to financial freedom stays exactly where it was. Lewis actually went through this in his mid-20s, got a nice promotion, felt good about it, upgraded basically everything in his life simultaneously. Car, flat, wardrobe, dining out more. His quality of life felt better in a surface-level way, but a year later, he had the same savings rate he had before the promotion. The raise just evaporated. He called it golden handcuff syndrome. You earn more, but you're no freer than before. The antidote is deliberate lifestyle design. When your income increases, allocate a portion, ideally most of it, to your investment or savings rate before you decide to increase spending. Let's say you get a 10% raise. Take 7% of that and bump up your investment contributions. Allow yourself 3% for lifestyle upgrades. This way, your standard of living improves slightly, but your financial trajectory improves significantly. Small discipline now, massive difference later. The mindset of the financially free. We can talk tactics all day, budgets, investments, income streams, and all of that matters. But I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't talk about the underlying mindset, because honestly, this is where it starts. This is a thing you can't skip. People who build financial freedom think in decades, not months. They understand delayed gratification not as suffering, but as strategic patience. They don't compare their financial life to their peers' visible spending. They compare their current trajectory to where they want to be in 10 years. There's a concept in behavioral economics called present bias, the tendency to overvalue immediate rewards and undervalue future outcomes. It's why we order the dessert we'll regret, skip the gym because the couch is right there, and spend the bonus on a splurge instead of the investment account. It's not weakness, it's literally how human brains are wired. Understanding that it's a cognitive tendency, not a character flaw, gives you the power to counteract it with systems. That's why automation is so powerful. That's why investing via automatic contributions works better than manual transfers. That's why the most financially successful people aren't necessarily the most disciplined in a willpower sense. They're the most systematic. They've removed the decision from the equation. The money moves before the brain can talk them out of it.
There's also an identity piece here that doesn't get discussed enough. Do you see yourself as someone who builds wealth or someone who earns and spends? Because behavior follows identity. If you fundamentally believe that investing and financial planning is for rich people or not really for someone like me, you will unconsciously make decisions that confirm that belief. Shift the identity first. Start calling yourself someone who builds wealth, even when the numbers are small, especially when the numbers are small. That identity compounds too.
Okay, let's talk about time. Because one of the most dangerous things in personal finance content is vague promises with no timeline attached. Financial freedom is possible. Sure, but when? Under what conditions? With what numbers? Here's a rough but honest framework. It's based on something called the savings rate to retirement timeline, and the research behind it is genuinely compelling. The higher your savings rate as a percentage of your income, the faster you reach financial independence. Not in a vague sense, in a mathematically modeled sense. If you save 10% of your income at a typical market return rate, you're looking at roughly 40 years to financial independence. Not great, but it's still better than zero savings. If you get to 25%, which is achievable with some discipline, that timeline drops to around 30 years. At 50%, you're looking at roughly 17 years. And some people get their savings rate to 60 or 70% through a combination of high earnings and very intentional spending. Their timelines can shrink to under 10 years. Now, most people can't save 50% of their income right now. That's fine. The point isn't to make you feel bad about your current number. It's to show you that the variable you control most, your savings rate, has a dramatic and non-linear effect on your timeline. Going from 10% to 20% doesn't just help a little. It potentially cuts your journey by a decade. And this is where growing your income matters just as much as reducing your expenses. If you can earn more through skills, career progression, side income, and keep your lifestyle relatively stable, that savings rate climbs fast. The 9 to 5 isn't just a burden. Used correctly, it's an income engine that can fund your independence, as long as you don't let expenses race to match it. The Sunday evening test. So let's bring it back to where we started, that Sunday evening feeling. The quiet dread before Monday, the sense that you're trading your best hours for someone else's dream. That feeling is information. It's not something to numb with Netflix or suppress until it goes away. It's telling you something important, that you're aware there's another kind of life available to you and you haven't built it yet. And awareness is the first step. It always is. What we covered today isn't magic. It's not a shortcut or a hack. It's a framework, a set of steps that compound over time into something genuinely life-altering. Change your mental model of what money is. Pay yourself first, every single paycheck, before anything else. Deal with high-interest debt before you invest. Start investing consistently in simple, low-cost index funds. Avoid letting lifestyle inflation eat your progress. Build additional income streams, even slowly. And through all of it, think in decades. Automate your habits and start identifying as someone who is actively building financial freedom. Lewis, by the way, the friend I mentioned at the beginning, he started putting some of this into practice about 2 years ago. He's not financially free yet. He'd be the first to tell you that. But he no longer feels like he's spinning in place. He has a plan, he has momentum, and on Sunday evenings, he's less anxious because he knows that every week that passes, the machine he's slowly building is doing a little more work for him. That's what this is really about. Not a number in an account, not retiring at 35 as some Instagram-worthy milestone. It's about reclaiming agency over your own time. It's about building a life where work is something you choose to do, not something you're desperate to do because the rent is due. You already have the starting point. You have the income. The question is what you're going to do with it from here. If this video was useful, drop a like, leave a comment. Honestly, I read them, and I genuinely appreciate the conversation. And if you haven't yet, subscribe, because we talk about this stuff all the time. Money, mindset, building a life that doesn't feel like a trap. I'll see you in the next one.